Appreciate you guys for being with us on this Thursday. We are 2 weeks out from the NFL draft. And friend of the show, I think it's a couple drafts ago. It was probably maybe 2022. Maybe he'll remember. But we had him on during one of our megacasts. He is a proud member of the UK Ravens. He is a graduate of the scouting academy. So this guy knows his stuff when it comes to evaluating prospects, giving us some insights that we need right now. We desperately need some insights on these prospects that are coming out and that the Ravens might be interested in over the next couple of weeks and all throughout this scouting process. So without further ado, friend of the show rejoins us. It's our guy, James Ogden. Great to see you, my friend. Was it 2022? Did I get that correct? April 2022?
Yeah, I think it was April 2022. Yeah, and I've been on again since. I think I came on during the international week when you guys were just after the international week, after the London games. And so yeah, it's great to see you guys again. Really good to be on.
Good Absolutely. To see you. And James, were you at the combine? I feel like you were.
I wasn't at the combine this year. I would love to be at all of the big pre-draft events, but obviously that'd be a lot of air miles for me. So
gotcha.
Not as easy.
Well, so go ahead, Bobby.
Sorry, I just wanted to say congratulations on this whole affiliation, right? The Ravens have now a presence and the ability to market and whatnot in the UK. And I think that just speaks to, one, how global the game is. We know that. But you guys have such a presence, and I feel like you and Ben and all these guys that I've gotten to know, and I'm sure Sarah's gotten to know as well in passing or from afar through social media, you guys have been on the front lines, I feel like, of that partnership, and it's become contagious out there. And I look back so fondly on the time that we did spend out there with you guys, for a week in the fall of 2023. And I got to think that this partnership means that there's more on the horizon. I'm sure you guys are fired up about it.
Yeah, we're really fired up about it. It's really great. Like it's been, it's a long time coming after that, the Jags debacle in 2017 that we don't talk about. But I think the visit over a year ago now has given some better vibes for the Ravens. And so they sort of feel like they want to do this now. And it's really flattering that they've chosen the UK as the market that they're going to. And I think most of the Ravens fans in the UK, I think, can take a bit of pride in it because, there's been all sorts of interactions that you've seen from over here in the UK. From the fact that the O was ridiculously loud in the national anthem at Wembley at Tottenham Stadium. That it was about 50% Baltimore Ravens fans, and a lot of those were UK-based fans, obviously. To the getting on Baltimore news when the Justin Tucker kick went over in Detroit that time when we were having one of our meetups. So we just the game has grown in the UK quite a lot, but our UK Ravens fan base and our little chapter of fans has grown quite a lot, and we've worked pretty hard at that. And all of the guys have done a great job over the years, and the Ravens have been talking to us in the lead up to this announcement, and then been talking to us after the announcement. And they've got some big plans and some things I think that will be announced pretty imminently that I can't really talk about yet, but that will be really exciting for UK Ravens fans.
That's awesome. James, I made a UK rookie mistake after that Jacksonville game, kind of tongue in cheek. I was like, Ravens should never go back to UK. And then I got it. Oh my gosh. They did not let me live that down. I was like, guys, I'm just saying it was a bad game. I'm not being for real.
I like London. I like the UK.
Yeah, I do. I actually lived in Cambridge for a year. Like, I'm cool. We're cool. Well, transitioning to the draft. Yesterday we had Jason from Huddle Up Films, and I felt like we dove in quite deep with the defense, and we can do that here. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, it feels like the Ravens might use their first-round pick on a defensive player because there's so many more places that it could happen and it might line up with the depth. But would you be okay with the Ravens selecting a guard in the first round? And is there anybody worthy of that first round number 27 slot?
Yeah, I think so. I think the talent in this draft is definitely the talent in the section of the draft where the Ravens will be picking is most likely to be defensive. Like, I just think that if the Ravens end up best player available, there's a high chance that it's going to be a defensive player. Mm-hmm. But there are definitely, I feel like the Ravens will have some offensive line type fallback positions, or that's how I see this draft playing out, where you have a set of sort of 20 sort of, I don't know, 15 to 20 guys. A lot of those guys are defensive that will be sort of really high on their board, and the Ravens will be hoping drop to them at 27. I'm sure they have the ambition of the 15th ranked player dropping to them at 27. But I think just behind that is a set of offensive linemen that are very interesting. And I think, and three of them are guards, and probably the safest picks are guards. So the three guys that I would be happy with at 27, I think will be Grazer Bell from North Dakota State, who's an offensive tackle who'll be transitioning inside to guard or center, but obviously with the Ravens will probably play guard. There is Donovan Jackson, who some people would love to see stay out offensive tackle. I think he projects better inside to guard at Ohio State. And then the third guy who's a really interesting discussion in terms of his fit with the Ravens is Tyler Booker, who is an outstanding prospect, a brilliant pass protector, an absolute mauler in the run game. But it's interesting with the way the Ravens run game is formed right now. He is probably less good a fit as the other two guys that I mentioned, Jackson and Zabel.
Hey, so you're not the only one, obviously, that thinks this is leaning towards the defensive side of the ball. Todd McShay put out his mock draft 3.0, former ESPN draft analyst, as a lot of us know, now doing his own thing in this space with the Ringer. Quick little clip for you. I would love to get your reaction on the two players that he's wrestling back and forth with. Ultimately chose one of them who's been mocked to Baltimore a lot. But your thoughts on this after this, just in a second here.
With the Ravens, I think Walter Nolan would actually be a really good fit here. I gave him Derek Harmon, right?
Yeah, they're both great, though. You don't lose in that situation. You get either one of them, they're great.
So he went with Derek Harmon, James, as many others have. But Walter Nolan there goes to 31 in his mock to Kansas City, of course, who's right behind Baltimore at 27. And Nolan, for those who aren't aware, is the interior D lineman from Ole Miss. Harmon, who we've spoke about a couple times on this show in recent weeks, is the defensive tackle out of Oregon. If you had to choose, your back's up against the wall. Who are you taking between the two?
I'm taking Derek Harmon. It's very close, though, for me between Harmon and Nolan. I think Harmon is an appreciate the details type of defensive lineman. Like he has a guy who has Pro Bowl potential, I think, especially in the Ravens scheme with the way they set their defensive front. And you've got to say that his intelligence, the way he plays with play strength, the way he excels in both phases of the game. So if you want to go and look at sort of one of his best tapes, go and watch the Ohio State game, which Oregon obviously lost in the playoff. But they threw everything at Oregon in terms of a running scheme. Chip Kelly cooked up a chaotic masterclass from Ohio State, and Derek Harmon was the best player on the Oregon defense, and he sort of had that offense's number that day, and they really struggled to block him all day long. He's a real tough guy, versatility, like everything that the Ravens like, Derek Harmon is. And I'd be surprised if he's around, is my thought, really. But Walter Nolan is also an intriguing prospect. Like Walter Nolan, in some ways, possibly has a higher upside in terms of as a pass rusher. He's less complete right now, but he's much more explosive than Harmon. I mean, Harmon's an explosive guy, but Walter Nolan's really special. He was a really highly recruited guy, but he sort of maximizes his power as a pass rusher. He's got a little bit further to go as a run defender. But I think the Ravens have shown in the past now that they, many years ago under Ozzie, they would draft two gappers and they would draft guys who excelled at stopping the run. And in recent years, they've been happier taking these guys that are a bit more of a project as a run defender because they know that they can develop these guys. And so they take guys that are a bit more explosive that they can coach up. So I think Nolan will be high on their board too, even though he seems more like a fit for a one gap type scheme. But I think Nolan, I'm giving these I'm trying to give a comp in my draft guide that'll be released next week that is focused on all these prospects, focused on how the Ravens will see them. I'm trying to give like a fun comp for a guy that was drafted by the Ravens for each of these prospects. And my guy for Walter Nolan was Nnamdi Madubuike. So that tells you how highly I think of Nolan. And then my comp for Derek Harmon was I couldn't make one comp work. So I said that he was a cross between the best bits of Arthur Jones and Brandon Williams. So that would be pretty special on the Baltimore defensive line, I think.
Yeah. Well, both those guys were, well, especially Brandon Williams, definitely special. James, you had said when I was asking about offensive line, you said that, the Ravens would probably hope that one of 15 guys would like drop to 27. And it would likely be defense. Can you name like maybe 2 or 3 that you think has a chance to drop? And you'd be like so happy that the Ravens came away with him.
So I think that there's a few guys that have a chance to drop. I think the 2 defensive linemen we mentioned have a chance, and I'd be very happy with both of those. Jedi Barron has a chance to drop as well. I'd be really surprised. It seems like the NFL media is starting to catch up to how good Jedi Barron is. He would be a really great fit, I think, for the Ravens to continue with Marlon Humphrey sort of playing an inside-outside role, because he could do that too. And he's a guy who's a bit smaller, but I think very highly of him. He's a highly intelligent corner, and he's got all the athleticism that you need. I think the other guys to sort of talk about are Jihad Campbell, who is an inside linebacker, but potentially could convert into an edge rusher. I prefer him at inside linebacker. He's one of the best players in the draft, but he tore his labrum at the combine and has had some surgery, so he could start to fall. And then there's the pass rushers. If a Shamar Stewart falls, or I'm high on Donovan Iziraku as well. So there's a few guys that could fall that I think I'd be sort of doing cartwheels for if that was the case. And then there's a really interesting conversation I would have about Luther Burden as well at wide receiver, which would be very controversial, and I don't think the Ravens are going to do it. But I'm really high on Luther Burden, so that's a conversation. I think he's a guy who was not asked to do anywhere near as much as is in his wheelhouse at Mizzou. He was criminally underused. And I think I make a bit of a projection with him, and I make no bones about that. But I think you can project him to the same type of impact, probably a couple of years down the line, but the same type of impact that some of the top ranked receivers that we've had come out over previous years, people like Malik Neighbors. I think Burden is that level of talent, and I think you don't often get a chance to draft a receiver that talented at 27. So everybody seems to think he's going to be there at 27. I think they should be at least having a prep conversation about what if Luther Burden's there. But I don't know how you make that wide receiver room work if you did it, and you'd be forsaking a lot of other talent on the board. So I'm not sure I could pull the trigger, but I think he's worth a conversation.
What you're looking at right now on the screen is our friend Jason Smith's Raven-centric big board. And by the way, you just teased a draft guide that I know we've used in the past. When did you say that's dropping? James, you got me?
Oh, I lost you then. What did you say, Bobby? Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was just saying, up on the screen, we're taking a look here, obviously, at our friend Jason Smith from Huddle It Up Films, his Raven-centric annual big board, and Burden's right there at wide receiver. He's his third-ranked positional player at that position. But you mentioned your draft guide. I know we've referenced that in the past. When is that dropping?
So that'll drop this time next week, 1 week out from the draft.
Okay.
So this year it'll be up over 50,000 words. There's long form reports on all of the guys that'll be a first round pick that could be the first round pick for the Ravens. Shorter reports that'll probably get you through day 2. I don't go into day 3; it's a bit too far. But basically, I'll give you the Ravens comp that I was talking about before, a bit of a summary, the full report, and then I also do at least a paragraph a bit more on how those guys fit with the Ravens. I think I'm like Jason's very similar to me in the sense that we both feel like you can't. When you look at the big NFL draft media and you look at mock drafts and big boards from those guys, what you see is a generic board that doesn't quite take account of all of the nuances of playing for the Baltimore Ravens. And so that's what Jason tries to do every year with his board that I love looking at every year, and we talk about on his channel loads. But you've got to try and evaluate players with a Baltimore Ravens lens, otherwise you lose what you aren't able to see what would work for the Ravens, I think.
Heck yeah. And we'll be looking forward to that next week. And you guys can follow James, by the way, at NFL Ogden. So if you're a betting man, who is the starting safety alongside Kyle Hamilton next fall? And is he a rookie?
So I think the safety position is a really interesting one about what they want to do, right? Because I think Darius Washington will be starting at safety next year. I think what they want to do is get Cal Hamilton back into the 2023 type role. I think they've got a fallback position where they can play him at safety with Darius Washington and not worry about it. But I think they're going to be on the lookout for a safety that allows them to free Hamilton up into that freer role that they had in 2023. There's a few guys in them do that. Earlier, I mean, just talking about the guys early on, I think Xavier Watts is a guy who will probably be available in the second round, who I love, who is more the Marcus Williams type, who will be able to play some deep post and will allow them to do some different things on the back end. Malachi Starks, if he falls to them, is a phenomenal safety and a great player, and I think he would fulfill more of the Hamilton type role from the end of last year and would start alongside Darius Washington. I think
got a little pause
because I think they have to.
Sorry, we lost you for a second. Go ahead.
Okay, brother. We got you now.
I was just saying that I think they will address safety in the draft. I think they will pick up somebody that allows them to free up Cal Hamilton to do more again. And I think it'll be a guy. I think they will look early on, and we'll see what happens. But I suspect they will try and add somebody, because I just think it really adds so much to their defense to free Kyle Hamilton up in that role. And they tried to do it all the way through the start of the season. You know, they really tried to make Marcus Williams and Eddie Jackson work on the back end in the first half of the season, so they could keep Kyle Hamilton in that free role until they had to ditch it and put him back at that split safety role.
Hey, I think you mentioned Barron at cornerback. I was just reading Jeff Zrebiec's, kind of review of how good Eric DeCosta has done in his first 6 drafts, I think it is, something like that. And at cornerback, he obviously has hit on Nate Wiggins, and yeah, that's his first round pick. But some of these corners that he's gotten in, day 3 hasn't been as good. And so what is your kind of feeling on the depth of the cornerback class? Because the Ravens just haven't hit, but they do need to add a corner. Like we know this with I mean, they have Cheeto. So, I mean, if they want, they could start Cheeto and Wiggins and Marlon Humphrey. But is there anybody that is not a first rounder that you're like, okay, the Ravens could come back around and he'd be a good addition and maybe eventually for real develop, whereas some of these guys in the past have not?
Yeah, so I think in this is a pretty good class at corner. I think I'll use the phrase that you hear Eric DeCosta say a lot, where there's guys in every round, I think, for them to take. I think you are sort of forsaking some things when you start to look at corners further and further down the line, and you're trying to work out what flaws a guy has that doesn't matter or will fit best in the Ravens scheme. He's probably a second round pick, so that's not that deep. But Benjamin Morrison is a guy I quite like outside of the first round. He's not the quickest or the most fluid athlete at the position, but he's got really sound technique. He's a great processor, and he has really good functional strength. He reminds me a little bit of Marlon Humphrey in the way that he plays the in the way that he plays the run. He's less athletic than Marlon, but that would be an interesting pick if the medical checks out on him. There are some guys further down as well. I would say I quite like Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State. He's much smaller. He's 5'9", but he plays much bigger than that 5'9". And he's I think Dane Brugler said that he's short, but he's not small, and that's very true. He's a tough and physical guy who will meet bigger physical ball carriers in the running game, and has ridiculous speed and quickness to mirror in short areas, and is another guy who might be a candidate to play with Marlon Humphrey inside out. So there's definitely options throughout the draft. I think Jedi Barron is the best corner in the draft. And so if you got him to fall to the Ravens, that would be fantastic. But I'd be very surprised if he gets out of the top 15.
Hey, James, last one from me. Asked the same question to Jason yesterday. Curious to hear your answer. Who is the most intriguing trade candidate not named Mark Andrews? Because I thought both Sarah and I perked up a little bit. Not that it was a surprise, but when Jason said, hey, it's Charlie Kohler for my liking, that was interesting to me, because every single tight end, as we know, including the fullback, is entering a contract year. You'd have to think that they want to handle that position for the future at some point, assuming they're not going to keep everybody throughout draft weekend. So is it Kohler, or is it somebody that maybe we'd be overlooking like an Adafe, even though there's not a lot in that outside linebacker room the way it's currently constructed. Well, excuse me, there's a lot, but there's not a lot of answers long-term outside of Kyle. Kyle's a Band-Aid, as we all know. No disrespect to him. He's on the back nine of his career, has given them great productivity. But outside of Dafe and Kyle, they're double-digit guys last year. You got more questions than answers.
Yeah, to be honest, you hit on Adafe. He would be the guy that I think that they would consider. I think it's a little bit, there's the track record of the Marquise Brown trade on draft day where the Ravens wanted to get cheaper and younger at a position. Adafe always contract is going to skyrocket soon. So that may be the position that they turn to. There are some options in this edge class. I don't think it's as deep as some people would say it is. I think there are some really intriguing options to take, and the Ravens have continued to do their succession planning thing at the edge position, where they've taken guys and each year and tried to develop them. I thought Tavius Robinson looked a lot better in the last season, and perhaps he's going to take a step. And they've seen that in the building, and they're happy with him. And Adisa Isaac's taken a step forward as well, and then they'll get somebody else in Chuck Smith's pass rushing school from this draft and try and develop them. So that's where I think I would go for it, but at the moment I would feel really uncomfortable with it, just as you mentioned, because it takes away some of the production in that room, and I would, if they did take that away, I think you would have to be looking at defensive line edge early to try and bolster that potential pass rush.
Just got one super chat here before we let you go. Nuno Alves asks, where can UK Ravens fans go to see the games in London?
So we run meetups all year round, all across the country, not just in London. So you won't be able to watch every game, every Ravens potential game in London, but we have loads of meetups that we run across London. There's loads of different bars that are able to accommodate us. There's a great Philly bar called Passyunk Avenue that we've been to before, and we also have great relationships with a couple of other bars in London. So there's a few places that you can go, but equally across the country, there's always meetups around the country, and you can find them on our UK Ravens X account.
What are the chances that you remember where we met up, the name of that bar that was connected to the hostel?
It's really bad that I don't remember that bar, because it's one that we do quite a lot, and there might be some events coming up soon at that place. So I'm going to try and find it, and I'll tweet it out for you.
It's all good, man. I just remember walking in there and the amount of TVs, Sarah, that were playing the 2012-2013 Super Bowl in New Orleans. I mean, it was just an awesome atmosphere, sound on, everybody from everywhere. Really, there were a lot of people from Europe that were coming in from other countries in Europe with Ravens jerseys on. I remember meeting some Polish guys, some German guys. They're all towering over me, by the way. And it was just an awesome experience. And you and I obviously had a great time that day. So it's great to see you again, my friend. Congratulations again on this partnership, this merging. The Ravens are now doing a lot in the UK and marketing. And I just think, again, like we said off the top, it speaks to what you guys really have cultivated out there. And I look forward to getting back out there eventually when they play again.
Thanks, Bobby. Yeah, well, welcome to come back. And you, Sarah, you as well, Sarah. It'd be good to see you both out there.
Thanks,
Heck
James.
Yeah. Hey, and by the way, you got this just on the way out. You're going to plug the draft guide you got coming up next week. You can be found at NFL Ogden on X. Anything else that we should know?
No, I think that's good. There's our UK Ravens podcast does a draft spectacular on next week, and so that podcast will be out next week, probably on Friday. You'll have me and Gordon McGuinness from PFF going back and forth about some of the draft prospects. And yeah, just the draft guide, I think, when it comes out next week, is the main piece of content that I put out there. Now you can find my guide from last year pinned, and my guide this year will be, like I said, similar depth on all these prospects and how they fit with the Ravens.
I like that name, Draft Spectacular.
Heck yeah. Love it. Appreciate you, man. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
James Ogden, graduate of the Scouting Academy, UK Ravens member. Awesome dude. Somebody that's been really helpful to me, Sarah, honestly, when I went out there in the fall of 23. He set up all kinds of stuff. And that bar that the name slips us both was an awesome pre-game day experience. And there must have been 10 TVs, 10 to 15 TVs. And it wasn't a hole in the wall, but it wasn't exactly like a huge type of sports bar that you have in America that's got, multiple fours, but it was just awesome. I enjoyed getting to know him and his boys out there. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That is awesome.